All right, family, it's your brother Assad.
And I'm Adrian.
And we are here with us a special business discussion. We are waiting for our guest to arrive in the next 5 minutes, but we didn't want to have everybody just holding on, figuring out what is going on. So we'll let's keep it authentic. Let's keep it real. Let's keep it trill. Yeah, we gotta give a special shout out to our South African family for all the love you guys have shown this channel. We are definitely just our hearts are full. Let me put my glasses on so I can see what I'm saying.
See what you're saying.
Yeah. So yeah, we're excited about this this discussion here. So the brother will do a presentation. He has a slide presentation that he's going to give. And we can talk about business and engage in the chat on YouTube, as well as individuals who join the Zoom call. Should I put the Zoom link in the thing?
You can, or you maybe can wait and do it a little closer to after the presentation. I think it's whatever works. Unless you feel like, oh, I might forget.
Yeah, I'm gonna add the Zoom link to the live so that it can be there. Let me see. Uh-oh, no, that's not what I wanted to do. All right, home. Oh, I know why it's not on the Wi-Fi. All right. So now we are able to see what's going on. All right. Shout out to the 26 people watching. We definitely appreciate that. Y'all don't remember that from the church. All right, let me see. Peace, family. All right, good morning, family. Marco, Ricardo, Pule.
I don't know where you got that O from at the end.
Cat Lego. I'm sorry, y'all. Once I learn this, once I learn, like I think it's Zulu, I will be able to better pronounce names. And once I know the names, right? Because I know people like, her name is Shanquisha. And it's hard to pronounce Shanquisha to some people. It's hard to pronounce Tchaikovsky, right? Those Russian names. So when you're not used to it, so I know y'all like, boy, brother Assad to mess up a name quick. But I'm gonna
What?
I'm trying to post the link.
I think you got it the second time. Yeah.
Why won't let me post this link?
Are you logged in as yourself there?
Yeah.
Because I remember one time I tried to post it and it was like it wouldn't do it. But I was like, I figured because I'm good evening.
I don't know. Won't
From
let me
Limpopo. Hey, shout out to ya.
All right.
So hopefully our guest will be here shortly.
Our guest should be joining us shortly.
To jump into this conversation.
Facts. We're going to get into this business discussion, and he has a presentation that he's going to give. So he should be joining shortly, unless one of these are.
Will he be ready to? Will he be ready to share his screen for the presentation?
Well, I think I can share my screen because he emailed me the presentation.
Oh, okay.
So I could share my screen and we can see what's shape. So let's see. Hey, everybody. I don't know why, Brother Assad, this is our discussion, but you have seen Drew Brees, the Saints quarterback. He was here in Cape Town last November. I'm a huge fan. Yeah, I know old Drew Brees. He was the former Saints. He ain't the Saints quarterback no more.
Yeah.
No. That arm done. Yeah, that arm done. Yeah, they even had a discussion like, because he said, he was retired, and it was like, and the Saints didn't have a great year, and it was like, we're going to bring Drew Brees back. That arm is done. It's done. 25 yards topped. That's all he could throw. So we want to make sure everybody that jumps in is muted, because we're going to give our brother Philip like the first, as soon as he jumps on, the first 15 minutes to do his presentation or more. And then we'll get to any questions, comments, and concerns in the chat. So we're just waiting for him to get on now. And is this YouTube we're seeing? Because I don't see the, usually people, let me see the view. Show non-video. Okay, there we go.
There we go.
Yeah, so I have it with it. Yeah, so hi Raymond, Appleton, Antonio, thank you guys for joining. We're waiting for Philip. He should be joining shortly. And yeah, and we will get this thing started. So let me send him a follow-up message.
Oh, somebody's back on.
Oh.
There we go.
All right. Okay, he should be joining shortly. Any second now. And then we can get this discussion going. We're just kind of killing time until he logs on. There he is. Bam, bam, bam. Just like that. Yeah, let's admit, brother Philip.
All right. The man of the hour.
The man of the hour. Let's see. And what we're going to do is we're going to put it on. Well, we'll keep it here until he connects. Once he connects, then we'll pull up. There go Brother Easy.
Hey.
There go Brother Easy. That's straight New Orleans talk. Somebody asked in the comments, well, what does Brother Assad mean when he says finna? Finna. They don't use finna because finna is
what
fixing to.
Context clues tell you.
Yeah, but even fixing to doesn't make sense, because that's still a real Southern. I'm fixing to, meaning that I am about to do something. I'm fixing, I'm preparing to do something. And Brother Philip, yeah.
Yes, I'm here.
All right, my brother. Thank you so much. So look, you got your camera on?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Do you want to turn your camera on, or do you want me to pull up the slideshow for you?
Yeah, if you can put up the slideshow for me. I have one here. So I will, as I'm talking, I'll mention which slide.
Okay, I'll tell you what I can do, Brother Philip, is I can make you the host. And if you look right in the middle of the screen, it says screen share. It should be a green thing. If I make you the host, you can screen share. I will make you the host.
Would that be easier?
Yes, you say you'll make me the host.
Yes.
Now the host.
You are now the host, and
so
if you click in the middle, the green thing, it says screen share. Do you see
it? Screen share.
Down at the bottom, it says like participants chat. It should be highlighted green, screen share. Okay. Oh, I'm sorry, share screen.
You know what I did? I'm not using a computer.
I'm
using the cell phone.
Okay, no problem. No problem. Yeah, I'll
or maybe I should log into the computer.
What is better for you? No, I'll share it. I'll share it. I'm going to
let's do it on this one.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can share.
Give me one second and I'll pull it up. I'm going to stop my video for 1 second.
Babu. Kamu. Assad. Mapi de asa. Wabu asa di momo. Well that the whole no.
Oh,
Hmm.
tama oh. Ang kakayuyak.
There's something wrong.
Open the presentation up.
Yep, it takes a second. My computer is moving slow. So let's I don't know.
Wabu.
Tatakulo.
Ako nakali takin na dako.
Tatakulo.
Oh,
Abdi
ini po.
eh.
Oh, grite.
Yeah.
Minimize that.
That's
There we go.
a mulo. Eh.
Mulo.
Eh.
Mulo.
Eh.
One. 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, boy, namu.
Abu. Tatabasom.
Kupa mezi kibisi. Nkele mezi. Nkele mezi.
Kumakatam.
Ntate Machila, Banaba, it's a noise. Switch off your sound. Thank you.
Okay.
Right, okay, kids. So we got it squared away now. Whenever you're ready, Brother Philip, get to started.
Okay.
Okay, I'm about to screen share, and I'm going to make sure everyone else is muted
Yeah.
so that you can have the presentation without any interruptions.
Okay.
In fact, I'm going to mute myself.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Thank you so much. Maybe as a start, is just I would like to greet you all, our fellow Black brothers in America, and here ourselves here in South Africa. I'm just saying welcome, and I look forward to a good interaction with yourselves. Yeah, and let's just begin. I hope you are able to all see the screen. I think I'll be able to present, and thereafter we could maybe deal with some questions. And my South African counterparts will be obviously be helping me as we deal with that. My name is Philip Usiba. I'm a deputy president of an organization called Foundation for African Business and Consumer Services, FABCOS. And I'm here to talk about what are the business opportunities that are there in South Africa. I could actually say stroke sometimes in Africa itself. The next slide, which is the founding, I'm just going to give you a background of what FABCOS is all about. You know, it was an organization that was started in 1988. The reason why it was started is that the Black small businesses, small and micro businesses during apartheid, which means during segregation, whites and blacks, they never had a voice, you know, to speak for them to the authorities. They were molested, they were abused by the system at that point in time, and FABCOS came into being to speak on their behalf. There were the South African Black Tax Association, the Taverners Association, and so on. And they then formed FABCOS, which was able to speak on their behalf and actually help them in certain circumstances. And mostly those businesses were found in the townships. And you can see from the screen there, where it's written Founding Vision there, that it's a typical township, and this is here somewhere in Soweto. The main thing also was that, after 1994 was that we needed to bridge the divide between the formal and informal economies. The Black people were mostly in the informal markets. And the idea was that how do we bridge that gap? Mostly white, the next slide explains it much better. You can see that is Johannesburg there, but you can also see at the bottom there that there is a typical township guy selling his clothes there, more informal. And we, as FABCOs, wanted to bridge that economic divide to see how we can bring the people with low skills, very much disorganized. How do we bring those people to participate in the mainstream of the economy, which is the slide, the slide and the photo just upwards there. You can literally see that it's quite organized, quite sophisticated. As at the bottom, you can actually see that it's a bit very, very informal. So the majority of people were in the informal businesses. FABCOs, the spread of FABCOs is actually spread. I know maybe in America you call them states. We call them provinces in South Africa. It's similar to states. So we have 9 states, or we could say we have 9 provinces. One of the provinces there is called KwaZulu-Natal, where the Zulu nation mostly are residing, and that's quite about 9% of our membership. Gauteng, which is the cornerstone and the heart of South Africa, it has about 26%, which is the largest one. In terms of population, it's also the largest. Gauteng is actually the smallest. It's more or less in the middle. I think I'm not showing very clearly there on the graph, but that's where Johannesburg is, which is the capital city there. And followed by Eastern Cape, which is East London there. Its capital city is actually Port Elizabeth, but our offices were actually in East London. Limpopo and so on. There's 9 provinces, as you can see there, and there's a spread there. We have about plus minus 3,000 members all across the country, and the percentage spread is as depicted there. FABCOs is a chamber. It's a chamber of business. It's an unincorporated. It's governed by a constitution. We have elections usually every 3 years. We elect a president and so on. And there's also different sectors that are in there. And at the same time, we have the middle part, which is program driven, which is like a Section 21 company, where it drives, the challenges that face small businesses, which I'll talk about as we move on. That includes access to finance, access to business opportunities, training and development, business support services, and policy advocacy. And if you look at down there, we have partners that we have worked with. The Department of Trade and Industry worked very closely with CIFA, which is a small enterprise finance agency, which is an entity that belongs to the government. CEDA is also the one that supports small businesses in South Africa. It's also a government entity, and the Industrial Development Corporation, which is also a entity that belongs to the government. Just going back on the National Chamber, if you look down there, we have various chambers that we have worked with. The Black Business Council, which is still in existence now. It's an amalgamation of almost all business chambers in South Africa that are Black. We all affiliated to the Black Business Council. And then we have BUSA. The BUSA, it's I would say more or less we affiliated to BUSA, but we ended up not being part of it because it was usually controlled. It's still controlled by the white monopoly capital in South Africa. And then CHAMSA, which is a business chamber that's for small businesses. We're part of, unfortunately, is no longer the NAFCOP, who is our counterpart, which is also one of the business chambers in South Africa. So there's basically the business chambers for small businesses in South Africa. You could literally say there's 4 of them. It's ourselves, it's NAFCOC, it's AHI, which is also Lily White, and SACOP, which is also Lily White. And the last part is the investments. These are the investments that FABCOs were involved in the past. Most of these things, we no longer own them because in the past, the issue with emphasis was investments for FABCOs, basically, and not necessarily for members. So it was, in a way, a bit distorted because you are growing FABCOs to be a bigger organization, economic-wise or business-wise, whereas businesses for members are not actually growing as much as they should. So most of those were the things that were done by FABCOs, and they were actually sold. I'm not sure if you are familiar. If you look down there, there's MTN, which is a cell phone company. It's the largest cell phone in Africa. We were one of the founding shareholders of MTN. At the moment, they're the largest cell phone company in Africa. They are all over in the continent. And then we have Tsuho-san, which is a chain of hotels. We're also involved with Premier Foods, which is a food making company. Even though it was eventually sold. We were not founding it. We didn't find it actually, but we ended up owning that, and they were eventually sold. In terms of today's thing, what is it? Our mandate, from FABCOs is for us to seek like-minded organizations and businesses in Africa and the world in order to foster business cooperations and partnership, and thus accessing global resources and leveraging Black entrepreneurs. I think one way or another, we realize that whatever that we do in our country, usually we're always suppressed by the white monopoly capital, and quite strong in South Africa. And the issue is that we have very few successful entrepreneurs in South Africa, mostly because of the challenges that I will deal with as we move on. So as I mentioned initially on the Section 21 of FABCOs, the challenges that face South African Black businesses are, one, is access to finance. There's an issue of how we access finance. We cannot be able to, I'll speak to that and elaborate more as we move on. Access to business opportunities, access to business support services, training and development, and advocacy. These are the key ones. Normally, when you look at all the small businesses in our country, and even some of the big businesses that are trying to, break through into the big businesses, they always find those are actually their challenges. Let me first start with the first one, access to finance. We literally have, I think, 6 banks in South Africa, 4 big ones that control the economy, that controls what financial resources coming into the country and what financial resources leave the country. Obviously, there's a central bank that controls all of this, but the central bank itself, it is actually, controlled privately, which is an anomaly because most in the government is involved, but there's a huge majority of private that is actually in private hands. So decisions are made together with the government, but more influenced by the private sector. And the private sector is obviously, 90% dominated by white people. Not necessarily being racist about this, but it's an unfortunate situation that we find ourselves in. So banks are very averse to Black businesses coming into coming in to seek for finance to an extent that there's various ways government trying to break into that, but because of the political milieu in our country, it's quite very difficult for mostly Black businesses to be able to, get finance from banks or even some of the entities that belong to the government. Venture capitalists are literally, from the Black people, are literally a non-existent. Business angels are literally non-existent. There's a few that exist, but mostly in the white community or white economy, if I would mention that. After 1994, if we got our liberation. After our liberation, people were very optimistic to say, especially from the business side, that we have our country politically, But at the same time, we also are happy that we are ourselves with our government supporting us. But the unfortunate aspect that has infiltrated some of the politicians is the fact that there's a bit of corruption in our country, and to an extent that people have become despondent, to an extent that Black entrepreneurs are finding themselves on their own. So I thought that I should actually mention that it's a critical component that is actually happening in our country. And then access to markets and business opportunities. As FABCOs, we are there to facilitate access to business opportunities, which I'll talk to, as we move on. Those who are already in business are usually limited to the immediate market that they serve. Very few entrepreneurs think of establishing a business in other African countries, let alone a global one. So even if the business is growing in South Africa and is Black-owned, they never think of leaving South Africa, or not even, but expanding their businesses into the continent, let alone the global side. Right? So the unfortunate aspect is that South Africans are still influenced by old mentality of a closed economy, which was during apartheid's time, that they find it difficult. They still function as a closed economy and not literally thinking from either a global view or a continental perspective. Access to business support services. This involves supporting the small businesses. Example will be finding new markets, new ways of doing things in particular sectors, human resource, accounting and auditing. We help some of them in doing that. And most businesses, those are things are usually outsourced. The issue that we are talking about, it also impacts on this and how we can ensure that our members that are in business are able to have a global perspective, interacting with some of our businesses in either Asia or Europe or even in America. Training and development, we do also offer for some few of the trainings, but as you know, it's an important component of the challenges that face us. It's not training alone, but it includes quite a lot of development that needs to be done. As I mentioned initially, the formal economy is quite well-versed and well-trained and well-educated, whereas mostly the informal, they lack the skills and the know-how of how to do things. Even the ones that are mostly, if you look at South Africa, even though we do have universities that people go to universities and learn at universities, but if you look at the way South Africa was structured, the universities churn out or produces people that are going to be seeking for jobs rather than people that are going to create jobs. The people that found themselves mostly entrepreneurs, you realize that they are not that learned. They probably end up to grade 12 or matric, as we call it in South Africa. And they don't, some of them, they even get a qualification of less than matric. And those are mostly entrepreneurs. So, yeah, but if you look at the school system in our country, it just churn out people that are job seekers and not job creators. And lastly, it's advocacy. And this has to do with what we are doing now, trying to advocate for our Black businesses in South Africa, talking to government also about legislations that are there that are not favorable to Black businesses, and also trying to make sure that most of the informal businesses participate in the mainstream of the economy, because most of them, they are there, but they are more on the periphery, of the economy. One of the townships, that is well known, it's called Soweto. And a study that was done in around 2006, if I'm not wrong, was that in 2006, they say every day 20 million rands leave. 20 million rands comparatively, I think at the moment it's $1 to 16 rands. So you can convert that. So 20 million rands leaves Soweto on a day-to-day basis, and it never comes back, because that money goes to the formal economy, leaving a township like as big as Soweto, which is the largest township in South Africa, and that money actually never goes back into black hands again. So most of the townships are actually served by brands and everything else that come in from the formal economy. And this has a lot also to do with advocacy. It touches on the issues of media, that the media is quite critical of black businesses that comes up. So, I mean, in our case, you might find also some disturbing, articles that talk about what are we actually trying to do in helping some of our black businesses. And sometimes it ends up negative in the media. So those are the things that we actually face, that we need to deal with as FAPCOs or as black businesses in our country. In terms of the opportunities that are there, I list them all there. We have obviously members that participate in some of this, and obviously not in all of them. But we know that the largest, sector in our country is mining. Even though South Africa is mostly it has been mining for a long time. I mean, since the 1800s, but there's still quite a lot of minerals in our country, and there's still quite a lot of mining licenses that are still there, and people haven't mined yet. So the opportunities are still there in the mining sector. Agriculture, I think that goes without saying that agriculture is there. There's quite a lot of land. There's some of our black entrepreneurs that not necessarily have the skills of farming, but government has given them land, and most of the land you can actually see that is lying fallow there, and it's actually not utilized. So there's quite an opportunity there in agriculture. Banking, as I mentioned, it's 6 banks that control the economy, and they decide what needs to happen there, in terms of, I would say at the moment, with the emerging of black middle class, the largest market that they serve, because we are the majority. South Africa has about 60 million people, and the white people are probably 5 to about 7 million in our country. So the majority are actually black people. Be as it may, as they are black people, they are the largest market that the banks serve. But on the business side, I think they serve more of the white businesses rather than the black businesses. So you could literally say the money that is collected from black people, it's literally used to advance white businesses in our country. So there's an opportunity for a black bank in South Africa. At the moment, there's African Bank, which at some point it was actually started by black people, but at some point it went into curatorship and it was saved currently by the South African Reserve Bank. And there's an opportunity now for participation of black people to come in and buy a stake, which was owned by South African Reserve Bank, which amounts to about 50% of that. But besides that, I still believe that there's an opportunity for a black bank to emerge there. There's a study which I will share with yourself, with Asset, that in the township, and especially in the townships of South Africa, which in your case will be the hoods, there's lots of businesses that are cash-based, that are not funded by the banks. And the banks are starting to look at it because they did the study themselves, and they realize that there's quite a huge amount of capital that flows there, and they want to grab that. So I'm literally saying that there's a space for a black bank to participate there. But as obvious, they end up going to the white bank, and some of them, they're obviously not being financed by the banking sector at the moment. Sector-based funds, South Africa has, the government has put up a SIFA, which is a small enterprise financing agency. In it, they promote or advocate that whatever rand you put or whatever dollar you put, they'll put a dollar to create a fund that you can utilize for us to fund certain sectors. It could be in agriculture, it could be in whatever, but most Black people don't necessarily have the money to put up a fund that will fund businesses in the townships. So that is why most businesses actually, it becomes a policy that is there, that is done, but most of those funds are never utilized. Airlines, because we used to participate in BRICS, I'm not sure how much you know about BRICS, but BRICS is a organization that was created. It includes B standing for Brazil, R standing for Russia, and I, India, and then C, China, and then S stands for South Africa. So South Africa is part of BRICS. And from the BRICS perspective, they are mentioning that there is an opportunity for an airline that could actually be servicing those 5 countries. There's quite a big opportunity there. But even in Africa itself, there is an opportunity of an airline. South Africa is quite sophisticated, I think, comparatively, with America. The infrastructure is quite, comparable to Europe and America. Even in certain circumstances, it might, because of maintenance, it might be starting to dilapidate. But comparatively, it's actually on infrastructure is actually leading. So you could literally say that, we usually say that the gateway for us to get into Africa will be through actually South Africa. Africa itself, because of no infrastructure, is still most of it inaccessible. So the only way to access various states or provinces within a particular country will be through airlines. So that opportunity still lies there. Huge opportunity in Nigeria, Congo, and various other countries. Airports, most airports in Africa, in South Africa, they do comply to international standards, but most of the airports in Africa don't comply to the international standards. So they also need to come through and make sure that they comply. And because if they comply, there will be lots of businesses coming into those particular countries. So people become adverse to go to countries where their airports are actually not complying because of safety issues. Franchising, I think there's an opportunity, in terms of franchise. Most franchises in South Africa, we don't have Black franchises from the Black entrepreneurs. Those who come up, there are few that I know that are coming up, that were coming up, even from Frapco's itself in the chicken industry. What normally happens, the white monopoly capital comes in and buys the franchise and thereafter kills it, so that it should not actually survive. So almost 98% of the franchises in South Africa are literally owned by white people. Retail chain stores, it's the same. They are owned by clothing and supermarkets, 6 of them. They are owned by white companies, same white companies, others are into clothing and into food also. It's the same ones, and all white. And now with, after democracy, they then went into the townships and erected malls in the township, and we have the same stores. The unfortunate aspect, which is different from America, is that in South Africa, you have the same brands in all of the states. So you literally do not have provinces with their own brands. All of them are more or less national. That's why you have approximately 6 of them controlling it. So I know in America you have various brands in various states, which we lack in South Africa. So there's an opportunity for local, provincial, or state-owned brands because that fosters a lot of competition, and it creates an atmosphere of growth in each particular provinces. So there's quite a lot of opportunities there. Education, I don't to overemphasize that. I mentioned what our education does. It just sends out people that are going to be job seekers rather than job creators. But besides that, I think there's an opportunity also on the tertiary side in terms of education, because the education in our country, and I mean even universities, they model themselves. In fact, I would say they haven't changed that much ever since apartheid. So we don't necessarily have a way of ensuring that the education that is there can fit into the industry, or bringing in entrepreneurs that are going into industry and create something like Silicon Valley as an example. We have none of that, you know. Yeah, and sports development. Well, I'm comparing ourselves with America, and in South Africa, unfortunately, I think it's quite strong in the white community in South Africa, but quite weak in Africa itself, in the African population in South Africa. But the potential of people that are sports orientated, even though they don't necessarily get far because there's lack of development, proper lack of development, scientifically, you know, development. Whereas on the other side, there's quite a lot of support, and that is why you see South Africa winning the Rugby Cup, the Rugby World Cup. I mean, we've won it 3 times now. But you see the majority of the people that are playing there, they are still white. You know, given that we are over 90% of our country, it is an anomaly to have something like that. So, and besides that, in the black townships, the sports are limited. You know, it's mostly that they play soccer. So there's quite various other, you know, sports that they could play, but there's not development there. But I think there's a big opportunity there. Property development, there's quite a lot of that. Mostly, as I said, any development, bank follow the property development that is done by white people. And you literally don't have black property development coming in. There's a small ones that are coming up, but they're quite small comparatively to what white ones are doing. We have an emerging economy of estates. I think the estates, you know, gated, what they call gated communities. It's quite a strong development in South Africa, and it's been developing quite well, to an extent that I think few of the other countries are actually trying to copy what South Africa is doing. But it's mostly also white companies that are going out into African countries and doing that. Development of local black brands, I mentioned that. You know, there's this missing space for black brands. I'm giving you an example though of beer. There was one gentleman, he not too far, I think about 3-4 years ago, he was running what we call Soweto beer. And Heineken is also in our country, by the way. That Soweto beer was bought by Heineken. And I don't know whether they will grow that brand or not, because so far I don't see it growing. So I'm just saying, as I mentioned before, some of the black brands are actually bought to be destroyed. Wine, I think there's an opportunity there. South Africa is quite good in wine. I know that I think California is one of the other states that are quite good in wine, but I think South African wine is quite well known in the world. That is what actually production of good wines, but mostly in white hands. But there is an opportunity there. Clothing, South Africans are fashion conscious. They mostly imitate international brands. They like looking into international brands, but there's a void of local brands. They are coming up on the shoe side, but on the clothing side, we have, I think, about 2 or 3 nationally that are coming on the black side that are black, but they are already infiltrated by the white people. You know, that's the unfortunate aspect. Food is the same. The brands that you find there are literally owned by almost food and cosmetics. You literally say it's about 3 brands that are there. You know, 3 companies that own the food brands there in South Africa. So you can literally see that the brands themselves are not diversified. Very few brands that are regional or that are provincial, or in your state, in your term that are state, confined in particular states. So they're mostly national. Hardware, virtual hardware, there's an opportunity for that because there's opportunity for development. And yeah, in terms of hardware, you could look literally see that there's also an opportunity in Africa because there's obviously growth into property development, and there's an opportunity to supply a lot of hardwares there. IT and AI, I'm not going to overemphasize that. I think you know better than I do there. Hotel and leisure, there's quite a lot of opportunities there. I must also emphasize that, especially when I talk about hotel and leisure and franchising, that we do have, example, McDonald's, but those brands sometimes are brought into our country by white people. We were very elated some point, I think in the early 90s, that there was Pepsi Cola that was brought into our country by Black Americans into our country, even though it ends up not being successful. But I'm looking at something like that we could have more of that, some of the brands coming from America, even though they might be white owned in America, but if they come in here by Black people, I think it will something that will be quite helpful. Currently, we have Burger King that has been in our country, I think, the last 5 years, and also brought in by white people and not owned at all by Black people. Hotel and leisure, I think there might be a few of leisures that are there in America that could find resonance and yeah, in South Africa that could come into our country. I think there's space for that. Gambling, there's a gambling board that is obviously, government owned, but if you look at it, mostly gambling is owned also by white people. And lastly, shipping and logistics. One question that was asked to us at some point, I think sometime last year, was from the trade and industry, and the president himself was saying to us, we don't even have one ship that is owned by Black people in South Africa. And what even South Africans don't know, but I must tell you now that South Africa owns more of the ocean side than the land. So it means the ocean that South Africa owns is bigger than the land itself, because it goes all around, the country like that. So the biggest part that South Africa owns is actually ocean, but it is actually not well taken care of. And there could be lots of opportunity of creating jobs there, and also opportunities there on shipping and logistics. Way forward, I would say that we probably somehow we need to have a shared vision. Might be difficult, but I think we need to have a shared vision and maybe initiate, I don't know how we should do that, but we have started already by business linkages, linking certain businesses with businesses in South Africa, and then organize business networking sessions, possibilities. There could be excursions or trips coming from South Africa from America to South Africa, or the other way around, and maybe twinning. I mean, if there are business chambers, we could twin them with some of the business chambers that are here in South Africa, so that they can actually be able to make business together. On that note, I'll say thank you. Thank you very much. I hope you heard me well. If there are questions, I'll await questions. Thank you.
Bam, 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 just like that. Brother Philip came with the presentation. Listen, for those who are watching on YouTube, I have posted the link in the, I'm going to go on and mute a whole lot of people. Yeah. So I'm gonna post the link in, I posted the link in the description. I mean, not the description, in the chat. So those who want to join, because I saw there was some questions and some discussions going on about certain things. Appleton, I'll get to you in 1 second. I had some thoughts on the presentation. First of all, Philip, thank you so much for coming and presenting all of this information. I got to shout out to Brother Easy, the OG. That's my OG in the South Africa. That's my OG. Yeah, so I got to shout out to Brother Easy, for making this introduction. Yeah, so one of the questions I had was around the banking infrastructure. So a lot of times here in the United States, Black Americans don't have access to capital. Appleton, did you put your hand down? I'm gonna get to you in 1 second, Appleton. Don't go nowhere. Don't have access to capital. But there is an opportunity to get capital through what they call credit unions. Now, I don't know if you guys have a credit union, but a credit union is a non-profit organization. If you have it, let me know. If you know what it is, but it's a non-profit organization. So whereas the banks are looking into making a profit, this credit union is usually formed around individuals who are in the same industry. So for instance, if I work for the University of New Orleans, right? I work for the University of New Orleans. They have a whole bunch of employees. They have 1,500 employees. All of those employees will join a credit union, and a credit union kind of works as a bank, right? But because we all work for the University of New Orleans, we share these common interests or whatever have you. And if I need to borrow money, I can borrow it from the credit union to buy a house, to buy a car. But it is a small kind of collective of, a credit union may only have 1,000 members, right? It's not a big bank. And, sometimes it doesn't have all of the services that a big bank has, all of the products. And if you leave out of that certain area, you may not be able to use the ATM, all of these certain things, but it does allow for access to capital by these small groups of people with like minds and industries. Really, it's not even about the minds. It's about we all in the same industry. We all work for the University of New Orleans, or we all work for Camp Tulane or something like that. So do you guys have anything like that?
Yeah, no. We don't, unfortunately. The funny part is that the banks in South Africa, they are quite happy to give Black people credit on either a house or a car, but not for business. It's an unfortunate.
Oh Lord, I muted the wrong person. Uh-oh.
1 second, Mr. Phillip.
I'm sorry, Mr. Phillip. I'm sorry, I actually muted. Someone else had their mic and I accidentally, let me unmute you.
There we go.
Oh, yes,
Lord.
Sorry.
Yeah, okay.
Can you hear me?
I'm sorry. Yeah, I can hear you now. I accidentally muted you.
Yes, I was saying we don't have credit unions in South Africa. But maybe similar to that, in South Africa, you will never have a problem if you have a job, and depending on your affordability, they are able to rate your affordability. They can easily give you money for a car or a house, or even a personal loan that has no collateral whatsoever. But they will not give you money for business. For entrepreneurship, no. There's so much that they can give you for the house and the likes, but it goes with your affordability. So lastly, I'm just saying we don't have credit unions whatsoever.
Okay, second question is kind of a follow-up to that. If they are willing to, here's how a lot of Black people in the United States gain access to capital. Our wealth is tied up in our home ownership. So when we buy a house, we could stay in that house 10 years, and the equity, the equity that is built between what we purchased and what the home value goes up to. A lot of times we take that and we pay for our kids' college, and we take that and we renovate our homes. But some people have been smart enough to take out the equity in their home and go and buy a rental property, right? To invest in another property to get another source of income. Some people take that money out and they start a small business. And I think my wife was bringing up a very important part from the African American perspective, a lot of times when we're looking at business investment in Africa or in South Africa or all over the continent, we want to invest in these major things. Like we never mining and for stuff that we really don't have expertise, when the opportunity can be created in these very small businesses, right? I heard you mention Soweto and the millions of rand that are leaving every day. There's an opportunity for African Americans to invest in a small business and to return some of that money back into Soweto, right? So I think that's one of the things we have. Mining is great. I don't know anything about mining. You see what I'm saying? And a lot of times African Americans, because we have access to some of this capital and we have this dollar to rand advantage, we want to jump into businesses that we know nothing about, that we haven't researched, that we haven't studied, that we haven't learned, and go up against people who have 30 years of experience in that business. And that doesn't make much sense. I think for us, we can start with very small businesses. I was thinking furniture businesses, if we have that dollar to rand advantage, get into real estate. For most South Africans, 500,000 rand is a decent amount of money. What was that, about 30,000 USD? Yeah, for us, 30,000 USD for a home purchase, for a flat purchase, that's just unbelievable. That is like, what? Give me 5 of them. You know what I'm saying? So there's an opportunity for us when it comes to building those type of businesses. Along with real estate purchases comes property management businesses that benefit and giving out a safe and affordable housing. But let me stop running my mouth. Appleton, Easy, and Demis PLC. Appleton, you mind jumping on camera, or you can unmute yourself and just talk?
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Waited, yes. I heard Baba Phil talk about banking. As mentioned, we coming from Few Co-op SA. That is Food, Energy, Water, South Africa Tertiary Cooperative. And now the question was, do we have credit unions? Definitely, yes. In South Africa, we have credit unions, and then that is what I wanted to talk about, because now, as a tertiary cooperative, what we should be doing is setting up our credit unions. But you cannot set up a credit union just because you're black or you're white, or maybe you're Chinese or you're Indian. It's not going to go with color. It is going to go with assets. If we go back to the history of South Africa, you had the FNB, or your Standard Bank, that was set up by, what is that, Morgan, is it Morgan, from America?
JP Morgan Chase.
JP Morgan Chase, you're right, Elder. JP Morgan came into South Africa, setting up a Standard Bank, because now Standard Bank had what? Had mining assets. They had mining assets. So us as a Few Co-op SA, that is now the integrated aquaculture, those are our assets. If we are talking about the 5,000 kilometers of coastal line of South Africa, including your 5,000 dams that are inland, and as well our rivers. That is the blue economy that we should be looking into as South Africans. Talking about money, why can't we issue bonds on the blue economy? Why can't we issue bonds on renewable energy? Why can't we issue bonds on circularity in order to draw our own money, make our own money, and make us less dependent on these banks that you are speaking about? We are not interested in those banks, but we are interested in standing up on our feet, as you have said, that we are coming from Few Co-op SA, looking into the 3 divisions, that is your renewable energy, That's the only thing now that you can make money out of right now and going forward. Integrated aquaculture. Integrated aquaculture takes in agriculture as well, and going forward, producing food in a more safe and secular economy manner. And then we have secularity, whereby now we clean our environment, and as well we regenerate our soil and give life to our environment. So here we are talking about ESGs, as we are saying that now we are coming from a national tertiary cooperative. Provincially, we have secondary cooperatives in each and every province of South Africa. In the local and regional municipalities, we exist as primary cooperatives and as well as PTYs in the local and regional municipalities, coming together at provincial level with a secondary cooperative and nationally with a tertiary cooperative. That is the only way that we can emancipate people in mass out of poverty. By going the route of private entities, we are not going to make it for Africa, because here, moving as a few co-op SA, we are moving upwards into North Africa, trying to free all our people. It is not only about us, but it is about the millions that are going to bed without food on a daily basis. I've left our email address there. Please, let's keep these networks going. Let us talk more about this, and let us talk as to how to make money without having to be scared about the banks that are there. They are going to die anyway. You don't need a credit cards to move around. If you are talking fourth industrial revolution, you have now your cell phone, you have your blockchain, you can have your smart card, and then we can transact. Leave the brick and mortar guys, and let's move as Africans. I thank you for now.
Touching the wrong thing, but thank you, brother Ableton, for that. That was a lot. That was a lot, and I think he touched on some very, very important topics. And one of the things he mentioned, and I see it in his comment, is renewable energy. Now, from an outsider's perspective, from an outsider of SA's perspective, there are two big opportunities that I see in SA. And he mentioned the first one, renewable energy. Every time I tell people I'm moving to SA, you know what the first thing they tell me? Get ready for load shedding. Get ready for load shedding, right? What do you know about load shedding, right? And that's because the grid, right? It's too much energy being used on the grid. Well, that means there's a phenomenal opportunity for solar, for wind, and for other renewable energies to be used. Right? When I hear people tell me about load shedding, I hear renewable energy, right? Secondly, my internet connection is unstable. I hope I came back. I hope I'm back. If I'm back, that's good. Okay. Secondly, when I was riding around Hillbrow and even the Mabanang area, right? The northern suburbs will fool you, right? Or not fool you. Let me say the northern suburbs are pristine. I'm around Rosebank, they're pristine. But when I go to, like, when I was in Hillbrow, and then there was another part of downtown Josie, like the CBD area, what I saw was, there was a lot of litter and trash, right? In some areas. I want to be clear, in some areas, not all over, in some areas. What I see then is an opportunity for recycling, for waste management, right? That's the opportunity that I see. Ways of creating an entire business off of this litter and debris that is left around. That's a recycling business as well as waste management opportunities. So, Ms. PLC.
Hello, how are you doing?
Hey, how you doing?
And I have no complaints whatsoever. I'm a happy camper. I'm in Africa. One of the things that I wanted to not correct but throw in, when you're talking about credit unions, I found out down here they're called cooperatives.
Ah,
Am I correct? Am I correct? Okay. So that means that there are some, and they're in Joburg, particularly when you start a cooperative here. I think I looked, and there was an article done where you have to have like 25,000 rand for them to start this in Joburg. So there have been women's groups who have the cooperative. They're here in Cape Town, not a lot of them, but there are several of them or a couple of them in Joburg. So the credit union, if and one of the things I didn't hear anybody say, you're a shareholder.
That's right.
Banks,
That's
you're
right.
not a shareholder. All right. Cooperatives are, and you can start a cooperative or a credit union, however you want to put this, at a church. Most of our churches in America, black churches, have credit unions.
Right.
So when your shareholders turn around and they save 500 rand and they want to start a business for 400 rand, they can go borrow against their own money.
Mhm.
All right,
Right.
because the money is there. So there are, but one of the things I have found out across Africa, there are many credit unions here on the continent. You just have to find them. There are associations, they have their conferences, so they're here, but you have to go into the parts of the communities and establish these, and particularly with small groups. There are women's groups here that have started NGOs who have started cooperatives or vice versa, credit unions. That becomes a very, very much impactive on people wanting to start a business, first of all. And your credit union can also teach entrepreneurship. Second,
Right. Right.
thirdly, you're getting to people on the ground so they can make those small mistakes. And I particularly found this out in Kimberly. Somebody tell me if I'm wrong. There are some cooperatives in Kimberly. But when you're talking about literally how you're going to teach people how to deal with ownership, whether it's a micro business or your mid-level business, you have to have that training. And that training is one of the things that the NGOs across this continent have placed in their missions to do. Now, but you got to find them. Now, I'm not hearing anybody telling me when's the last time you've been to Soweto and you found somebody owning a business. There's a lady in Soweto that does brandy because my husband's a brandy drinker, and she does her brandy. Top notch brandy. So these are small, but they are usually not well publicized. There are
Mhm.
the NGOs that are on ground in Africa, the big Africa, and then the ones who are here in South Africa have literally impacted people starting small micro businesses. But you won't hear them, but you have to deal with the nonprofit NGOs. That's what I'm interested in. How do we find these small business owners that we can invest in? That's where I'm coming from. I want to be
Wow.
able to. I got a couple of thousand rand, not a lot of not a lot of rand, but enough to say, hey, I can put this in there. I can help you grow. I can even show you how to do the shares and things like that. So that's where I was concerned with, and my research over the last 10 years, because this is my specialty, is entrepreneurship, business development, and particularly with women, because the women have to be able to find a business that will also allow them to raise their children. They can't be they won't be turning around having to go to babysitters. They don't do that down here like they do in America. So you need women in business. You need women to be able to understand the business and the concept, because when your baby needs milk, whatever profit you made that week will go to the milk. So,
Mm.
but you need some place to put the money. You cannot go to some of these major banks with, do you know down here that you get charged for putting money into the bank?
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, I do.
We know.
Yeah, 'cause
Found that
I have
out,
a
didn't
We have
FNB
accounts.
account.
Fees
Yeah.
are crazy.
you?
I never That was the
that was
first time in my
that
life
was
I heard something like that. Yeah.
it's not a herd. It is, and how much you put in is it goes to how much you have to pay to put money into a bank. That's where the credit union or a cooperative, you don't have to have that, but you can do this block by block, and that's one of the reasons that I'm not. Let me cut it off. How I got here 30 years ago. I started saving at a credit union 30 years ago. And that helped me save enough money to get here and live okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Miss
Thank you.
PLC. Thank you so much. Um, Brother Easy. You gotta unmute.
Okay. Yeah. Good evening to everyone and good day to everyone. Happy Saturday. Yes, we have load shedding here. It started now at 6. Now, here's my thing. I was thinking about. We also have something called, I don't know what you call them in the States, but here we call them stockpiles, where we contribute minimum money. It doesn't, whatever amount that can be contributed, it's done. For instance, you if you are able to contribute 100 rands, you are allowed. If you are able to contribute 1,000 rands, you can do it as far as you are able to do so, and collectively. Unfortunately, most of the time that money goes to the white bank, and then it's also swallowed by other things like white insurances and so on. So why am I saying that? I'm trying to equate that to your you call it what, credit what?
Credit union, yeah.
Yes, I'm trying to see if is that not an equivalent, though we take our monies to the bank anyway. So if we can
No,
have
let me jump in easy. The credit union doesn't put money in any other bank. You can, if I go to the credit union, I can deposit my money into the credit union. I can withdraw money from the credit union. It's separate from a bank. It has no banking relationship. So yeah.
I'm personally thinking maybe we could have those stockpiles contributing their monies respectively and putting them not in the bank but somewhere else where we could be able to utilize those monies to establish various industries that would allow for growth in our economies, in our Black economy, because the space is huge. That's what I wanted to talk about. That was my point, actually.
I want to go, thank you, Brother Easy. I want to go back to what Ms. PLC said about those micro businesses and small businesses, because I think that was the point that I was trying to make. She said there's a lady in Soweto that makes great brandy, right? So from an African American standpoint, if I'm a financial investor, right? I don't have no money, y'all. Let's be clear. I don't have no money, but if I had some money to invest, and I like the brandy that the young lady is making, right? I think Brother Brandon brought this point up. For an investor, we want to look into a business that is already profitable and see how we can make it, how I can invest to take it to the next step. I'm making 30,000 Rand a month. I want to make 60,000 Rand a month, but I need X. I need this in order to expand. If you can invest in this, I can expand. And I think those are the business opportunities for African Americans. Again, the advantage that we have, because a lot of the stuff that Brother Philip talked about, you can just flip it around and say the same stuff is happening to Black America, right? But the one advantage that we have is that we're coming with the US dollar, and it's $1 to 16 Rand. So we have that monetary advantage that we can come to South Africa and we can invest with, to us is a relatively small amount of money, but to a South African, it may be a significant amount of money. And so when we're looking to invest, again, those micro businesses, those small businesses, those businesses that are already up and running and who have a proven track record of 5 to 10 years in operation, and they're just trying to move to the next level, right? And again, businesses that we need to understand, there's somebody in the United States who understands mining, but brother, side on say nothing about mine. I can't. We live below sea level. We can't dig into no ground out here. Yeah, we mining water. Brother Philip. Brother Philip.
You have to unmute yourself.
You have to unmute yourself. Let me see.
Yes. No. Thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to say that the equivalent of a credit union in South Africa, it's what they call a cooperative bank. But for you to run a cooperative bank, you need a banking license, and it's an onerous thing. It's quite stringent way to actually get there to do a cooperative bank. I think from what you said, that's equivalent to that. I think there was, if I'm not wrong, there could be one in our country at the moment that is actually running. The rest is what we spoke about, which is, I don't know if Ms. PLC, that's what she was speaking about, but we do have.
Nope. Somehow you're muted again.
You muted yourself again, brother. Let me see.
There we go.
Okay.
Load shedding.
Yeah, it's what we call stokvel. A stokvel will be like people coming together, contributing money, and then if there's 20 of them, then they can borrow each other money. But mostly it's not for business; it's for you to, whatever. If you run short of money, and you can do that. It's a small little thing, but some of them. Ever since we've been speaking, ever since the dawn of democracy in our country, to say, how do we grow those stokvels to eventually become big enough to become a cooperative bank? Because if you can get to that point to become a cooperative bank, then it becomes easy. But additionally,
I'm sorry, let me mute this person. All right. Yeah, I'm sorry, I just had to mute that person.
Yeah. Lastly, the cooperatives that are here in South Africa, they are completely different from what we are talking about, because mostly of the cooperatives in South Africa, they cooperate on either agriculture or something of that sort. So they become a cooperative as opposed to a cooperative bank. And their main thing is not to borrow people money, but is to work together. Like, what Mr. Appleton was saying, to work together, where they work together to do that. They've been encouraged, those ones, to say if they can put up their own money so that they can borrow each other even in that same sector. But they've not been formalized, most of them yet. I just wanted to re-emphasize what's actually the difference.
All right, thank you, Brother Philip. Appleton, before we come back to you, I know Josie Gold was in the comments on the YouTube. I know my brother about to come in and drop some knowledge and some games. So, Brother Josie, I know you got something to say, my brother. You want to jump in?
Yeah, greetings, brother Assad. Greetings, Adrian, and everybody in the chat.
Peace, brother.
I hope everybody's doing well. Yeah, look, for me, there are a lot of opportunities, but I think at times we also need to look at it. How do I put this? For me personally, from my own research and people I know, like, for example, close to where I live in Alexandra, a lot of the malls are owned by Black South Africans. I think that's something that I learned. And not just that, even in Soweto, there's a company, a Black-owned company called Rebosis. They're the ones that mainly built a lot of the malls in many countries, many parts of South Africa. It's a listed company. It's owned by a guy named Sisan Gebulan. So a lot of the malls in South Africa are owned by Black South Africans, including a lot of the franchisees are also Black South Africans. So I think I need to get that out there. So that also presents a lot of opportunities for people to set up businesses there. I know some people might be terrified of doing business in the townships, but townships have a good economy because that's where most of the Black middle class lives. I think that's something that people need to understand. So don't discount townships.
Joseph, let me jump in. I want to back up your point, because a lot of times Black folk in America are terrified of doing business in the ghettos here, in the hood here. But the Asians come into our community and the Arabs come into our community and do multi-million dollar businesses in our community. For instance, right here in New Orleans, we are famous for Popeye's chicken, fried chicken. We fried chicken. This is like the birthplace of good old-fashioned fried chicken. Yet we have Asians who have come into our community selling us fried chicken, selling Black people fried chicken and black hair care products and fried chicken. But we are afraid to go into, it's like we want to go into the suburbs. We want to go into, I guess what you guys would call Santon or something, right? We want to go into the downtown areas and start all of these phenomenal, great looking, aesthetically pleasing businesses when the money is being made in the ghetto, right?
Yeah.
Just, I mean, whether you want to call it the ghetto, you want to call it the township, whatever you want to call it, we call it the hood. The hood is producing millions of dollars. That's the reasons why the Asians come and set the stores, but we somehow want to, I don't know how to describe it, why we are afraid to invest in our own communities or invest in communities that are considered quote unquote low income, but low income people have needs. They need housing, they need food, they need hair care products. We Black folk in America don't have no money, but we spend almost $1 trillion. So we got money somewhere, we're willing to spend it, So go ahead, George. I'm sorry, brother. I just wanted to back up your point.
No. I agree with you. We're on the same train of thought. So look, and in South Africa, most of the middle class, the Black middle class, still lives in the township. So you can get both of that, of people who would be considered poor and middle class people. So it's a very large market, and what you're saying is also happening here in South Africa as well, where some Asians and Arabs and so on and so forth are also starting to come into the townships and do business. So for me, I'd say don't completely ignore the townships. I get that Santon's nice. Many people want to live there and the other suburban areas. But like what you're saying, don't ignore that. It's a huge market and it has a lot of potential. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Brother Josie. Brother Appleton, you have your hand raised.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, here I think maybe elders quoted me wrongly. Elders, I come from a background of working with money. I come from treasuries. I worked at treasuries for about 10 years. So hence we are speaking cooperatives. Hence I went into cooperatives because now we know what cooperatives are and we know how to form cooperatives and we know how cooperatives will be able to help our communities, to get our communities out of poverty. Hence now we are talking about cooperatives. As a tertiary cooperative, Elderfield, a tertiary cooperative, it is the only vehicle that can form a cooperative bank. Hence, I was explaining our structure from primary until tertiary cooperative, showing you as to how we are going to form a cooperative bank. Now, I heard as well, Brother Easy as well came up with a stock fair. A stock fair is something that it's a social, it's a bond, if you like. It's something that can be equated to the new Black Lives Matter bond that was issued in New York. I think it was last year or 2 years before. A stock fair is something like that. We have already spoken to the treasuries of South Africa with regard to issuing a stock fair bond. That is now a term that I coined with the treasuries of South Africa, calling that bond a Stokvel bond, taking that name from the word Stokvel and adding the bond into it. Now that social bond will be looking into what we went through as a people in South Africa through apartheid. We'll have to speak to the funders of apartheid to see how they can fund the Stokvel bond in redressing whatever the things that the imbalances of the past, what they have inflicted unto us. So Brothers, when we talk about cooperatives, please know that we are coming from the South African Cooperative Organization. We are legal bodies. And as you said as well, Brother Phil, that there was only one cooperative. No, in South Africa, we have about 4 cooperatives bank. We have one in KZN. We have one in Klerksdorp. We have one in, I think here in Gauteng, where I am. The other one, I think it was in Limpopo. There were ladies that tried forming a cooperative bank or a credit union, if you like. But the unfortunate part is that they are assets. They are assets. Hence, I'm saying when you come to think about banks, always think about what are your assets going to be. Think about assets, and then you'll be able to move forward. You don't just come with a bank because we are blacks and then we are many. No. We look into assets and we look into our objectives and how are we going to do that. Thank you for now, Chair.
Thank you so much. Ableton, there was a question, Josie Gold, I'm coming to you. There was a question in the comments here on the Zoom. It says, why does the Black middle class still live in the township? Now,
Brother Assad. Okay, sorry,
Yes.
Brother Assad, to interrupt you, because I wanted to address that question as well. Will you allow me? Because you haven't introduced me and I'm just intruding your space.
No, family. Lozy, we got Lozy and Josie.
Yes.
Right. Is that
Yeah,
Lozy?
we've got Lozy and Josie.
All
Yeah,
right, Lozy.
yeah.
I definitely can just I'll make one small point
Okay.
and then I'll let you square it away.
Thank you.
And from the African American mind, when we heard townships, from what we have known, like, when we saw Serafina and we saw, Soweto and these movies, we thought the townships were just all like shanty towns and 10 made houses or whatever. Yeah, and then when we go through Soweto for real, you see that, oh no, it's a spectrum of income levels, right? So the township, that idea, that thought process, we think it's just poor people, when it's actually you have regular houses and regular middle class people living in the townships. And secondly, the question about why would the Black middle class still live in, or why does the Black middle? I think I don't know if this brother's African American or not, but I do think that's part of the problem with the African American community, is that once we become middle class, we leave out of our communities and we try to find it as quickly a way as possible to live in white communities. And it's not because we're trying to be around white people, it's because there's also some resources there, right? We go where the resources are. The nicer schools are in certain communities. The access to X, Y, and Z are in certain communities. Leave out of the hood, the ghetto, and the Black middle class is now absent from other Black people. And that becomes very problematic because my mom grew up in the segregated South. Right, my mom and dad grew up when black people and white people were completely separated. They lived in 2 totally different worlds. But in those communities, my mom was dirt poor. Let me just be clear. My mom used to get apples and oranges for Christmas. She was dirt poor, right? But on the same block as my mom was the Black doctor and the Black dentist, because they all lived in the same neighborhood. So even if you were poor, you had someone to look up to. You're like, oh, there's the Black doctor right there. He's in our neighborhood, and he was also accessible. You could ask him questions. How did you become a doctor? So when you take these people out of the Black community, then you just kind of leave a whole group of people destitute, without hope, without access, without knowledge, without the skill. Lozy?
Okay, thanks, Brother Assad. You have touched some points that I was about to mention, responding to that brother there. I think he is Black American, but he doesn't understand the landscape of South African culture and the background. So I understand, that's fair enough. So he's looking at South Africa in a perspective of America. We've got similarities, but we're not 100% like they say.
Right.
So the systems in America are not the same with systems in South Africa, even though they've got similarities. For example, the owner of one of the biggest teams called Orlando Pirates. He comes from Soweto. Orlando Pirates and Chiefs are one of the biggest teams in South Africa. They come from Soweto. So he still stays there. The owner of Orlando Pirates, he still stays there in Soweto. Not so long ago, I drove past his house. So the thing is, Soweto has got some nice areas where you can literally find a black middle class that can stay in Sandton as well, but they will rather remain in Soweto for their personal choices and reasons. One being loyal to the community, that they feel like they need to serve the community. They're not gonna have money and just walk out of the community. So you find that you go to Soweto, you find that those houses in Soweto, when they were initially built, they were built in like matchboxes during apartheid for just to put blacks there, but closer to the factories. They actually didn't live today. The middle class there upgraded the area. So they stayed there. There's so many people who actually, the middle class stayed there and they upgraded the area. The area looks today the way it looks because they didn't leave, they stayed there. But this is the point that I just wanted to touch on. I don't want to waste more time on that one. I want to address the issue of what we're discussing today, like for example the banks and the whole economy of South Africa. My brother, I think is your Philip. He mentioned the last time he spoke, he was connecting the past with the present, from like trying to explain the South Africa we have today, looking at the past and the present. There he was hitting the points, because I feel like this whole discussion, we started from the wrong foot. You know, we should have actually started by explaining why we ended up where we are now. It's not like Black South Africans just didn't do anything. We actually have done so much progress under the circumstance that we faced with. Yes, the white monopoly is a thing, but a white monopoly is not a domestic issue, it's a global issue. And I think we are trying to fight a losing battle if we approach it as like a village. This thing is a global issue, it's a network. So whatever you might look at the banks in South Africa, for example, our Reserve Bank there in Pretoria, the question is who built that thing, who's owning it? The other banks are more like subsidies of the Reserve Bank. ABSA, FNB, they exist because they are linked to that one. So that's the root of the problem. And it's linked to where? When you go there, you find that Switzerland, UK, Canada, America, these things, they tied, then they are involved there. So we can spend the whole day trying to speak on economy of South Africa and how we can actually liberate Black people, but it's not gonna be achieved up until we deal with that elephant in the room. So we have done what we should have done with the circumstances that we were under, but I think we need to deal with the elephant in the room. For example, if you go on FNB today, you look at the shares on the stock exchange, PIC, which is like a public investment corporation of South Africa, where is the pension fund scheme. They take about 10% of the pension funds collections of South Africa, the taxpayers, they use 10% to invest. So you find out that about the largest shareholders are coming from sorry, I'm just disturbed by this call I'm receiving. So sorry. Okay, can I continue? So you find out that the largest shareholders is PIC. FNB is one of the biggest bank the brother mentioned. Nedbank as well, the largest shareholder is PIC. About 23% of Nedbank is owned by the government. No, actually the public. The government is managing the funds of the public, which is the people of South Africa, which are paying tax, and the majority is Black South Africans. You look at Standard Bank as well. Standard Bank, the largest shareholder of Standard Bank is the Bank of China. And then the second largest holder is PIC again. And this, I'm looking at roughly at 25 to 27% of China's shareholders and 15% of PIC. Again, you see about 2% of BEE, which is it's something very young, but it has also made moves. They own about 2%. The BEE is Black Economic Empowerment. So if you look at BEE, PIC, and some companies of Motsepe and other Black companies, they are found in these companies that are branded as white companies. It's not like we are not getting the stake. The question is, how much should we be having now? That's the biggest question. The idea that people just come here and lump things and say, like, I feel like we give white people too much credit, and that's not an approach we should be taking. Black South Africans need an encouragement. We need need to reveal these things to them that we have made moves. There are certain percentage we own in these companies. Could we own more? Yes, that's what we should be discussing. In terms, we break these things into details, not just come here and like what Malema does as a politician. He doesn't go into details or use data. He just say things. And I feel like South Africans are being, it's a kind of like a propaganda. We need to let South Africans reveal the details, let Black South Africans know where we are now in terms of percentage and ownership. And then the next generation has to work hard now to completely take 80% or even 100%. But it's not like we don't own anything. And when people come here and throw words like we don't own anything, that's not words of discouragement, because there is something that we are owning. We are like second to third richest Blacks after Black Americans. If we didn't own anything, I don't see how we could have made those moves in 28 years. There is something that is being done on the table. We just need to let South Africans know where we are and what needs to be done. I'm not sure about the shares in Absa, because the brother mentioned 4 banks. I know for sure the 4 banks he spoke of is Absa, FNB, Nedbank, Standard Bank. The African Bank is young. I don't know in terms of shareholders, but I believe it's Black. It's coming as well. But I don't think we should focus on the coming businesses when we already have got businesses that were built at the back of our ancestors. We need to take ownership of this business. The shareholders that we are owning in Nedbank, that's a good move. We should be entitled to these businesses than letting them go and just saying it's a white monopoly. We need to fight white monopoly head on head. The Absa Bank must end up being owned by majority Black South Africans as relative to our population. The 5 million South Africans can not own more shares, but they still own them because they're tied to the past. So we need to resolve those things. When it comes to, I wanted to touch on the business as well. There are so many Black South African businesses in South Africa. I'll just call on a guy that everybody knows, which is an obvious guy, Patrice Motsepe. His businesses are doing well and expanding all over Africa. That's what I think most rich Black Americans should look to, like partnering with these Black billionaires on the continent, because they've got so much information. Their businesses are expanding all over across the continent. And last time, as I said, Brother Assad, our stock exchange, JSE, is the most affluent and trusted stock exchange on the continent. They've got more data on what's happening on the continent. So I think Black Americans should buy stock there than starting with these small businesses. They're gonna take long. We need to buy out these white monopoly companies that are there. And from doing my own research, Black Americans have got way more wealth than even white South Africans. So the companies that white South Africans own here, there's no an excuse why the Black Americans cannot have a secondary option where they can also invest and have a source of wealth as well. I'd rather we partner with them than partnering with people who are not going to be loyal to our race, you know.
Thank you, my brother. I definitely agree with that. While you were talking, I was thinking, you know, the easiest way for Black Americans to invest into South Africa is the stock exchange. But here's what I want us to be careful of. The reason why I say with Ms. PLC, to back up her point, micro businesses and small businesses, because that grows South African industry, right? As Black Americans just coming in and buying stock, yeah, we're taking it from the white folk, but what happens to the native South African, the indigenous, right? How does that benefit him just by Black people from America owning it, right? So there has to be a strategic plan of how Black Americans, if we're going to go buy up whatever bank, we're going to go buy up a whole lot of stocks in those banks. Okay, what are we going to do with those stocks? We're going to make sure that that company is now employing X amount of Black South Africans, that it's going to lend X amount of dollars to Black South Africans, that mortgages and what you guys call bonds are going to go to X amount of South Africans, that the interest rates are going to be favorable. See, it has to be a strategic plan. Just having another Negro come and own it doesn't benefit everybody. It has to be a plan. It has to be strategic on how it's done. You follow what I'm saying?
Can I respond, brother? Okay, I think you touched a very good point, but I think we need to be clear here. When we talk about the Black Americans that are on the top, I'll say 1% of the rich Black Americans, this is not your average Black Americans, even in terms of how they articulate them. They articulate things, right? It's kind of like the 1% of Black South Africans when they meet and try to fight to control the wealth of the continent. The point is this: let's say, for example, PIC now owns 25% of Absa Bank. Black South Africans, Black Americans buy 25% of Absa Bank. That puts the black race already on 50% of the Absa Bank. That means, remember, if our government now is controlled by the multi-corporations or other races, they control them because of numbers. It's a numbers game, right? The more we buy shares into our companies, that means even our own government will have more say because now we've got a backup. That's why I'm looking at the corporation at the top. They're doing the small business, you're going to try, but they will always buy you out. The monopoly at the top, there's always going to come for the small business. If we take that approach as a priority at the front, it's not going to take us far because now we're going to have to hit the ceiling there. We're going to find the monopoly sitting there. The companies that we're talking about, for example, if I mention Pick n Pay now in South Africa, everybody knows Pick n Pay. If you come here with a new supermarket, it might take even more than 30 years or 50 years before people are used to you. And you're going to have to work extra hard to convince people to change their mindset. It's more of a culture. We have already built that culture. We don't need to start from scratch in everything. We need to buy these giant companies, buy them out as much as we can so that they are in the hands of blacks. Then we continue from there. I think that's the best approach.
Thank you, my brother. I got somebody I'm going to admit. Josie, go. I see your hands up. Then Easy. So Josie, Easy, and let me let this brother in.
Yeah, okay. The whole banking thing. For me personally, look, there's a common saying that there's discrimination in terms of lending from the banks, like black people getting money from the banks. And in my experience, it isn't true. And even when I speak to like a lot of black bankers, like people with black South Africans who've been involved in banking, what they tell me all the time is that a lot of black South Africans don't know the process of applying for loans at the bank to do something like for businesses, so on and so forth. I think that's the problem. There needs to be an education for black South Africans in terms of how do you apply for a loan, because it's a process, and if you get a few things wrong, you won't get a loan, and it makes you look like you're not credit worthy. So I think there needs to be education amongst that. I think many people need to start speaking to experts on how to actually get a loan and how likely you are to actually to be approved for a loan. So how much capital you need, so on and so forth. I think there needs to be a lot of education in terms of how do we get loans from banks. Because from what they tell me, a lot of black South Africans are involved in banking is that we just don't know how. It's not that it's impossible. It's not that there's discrimination. We don't know the rules of banking and how to get a loan. So I think there needs to be education on that. And in terms of like the whole business thing, what Lozi's saying, I agree with him to a certain extent. But for me, I think organic black businesses are important as well, because it gives people a sense of pride. So I think there needs to be a lot of investment in that. A lot of the small businesses can't be ignored. Even though I agree with him on putting a lot of money and ownership into like the large businesses that are already there, but I still think more organic businesses, like we would be missing a huge opportunity if we ignore organic black businesses. Yeah, thank you.
It has to be a multifaceted, multi-pronged approach to whatever we're trying to do.
A quick one, Brother Assad. I think when Josie Gold made a good point, a very good point, organic black-owned businesses. But I also believe in rebranding. We buy these things, after a long time, we rebrand them to our side as well. Because, look, for me, I think strategy is more important. For example, we have to look at how China did what they have done. The Chinese are good in copying and then changing names. They copy the exact thing and they change the name. After a long run, after a while, everybody forgets and they are running their things. So I think we need to be smart about the whole thing. The Europeans, when they came to Africa, they just took everything. They felt entitled to everything. We should feel entitled to what we have as well. We must start to have that mindset of feeling entitled, being savages as they are, because that's the only way. You cannot play by the book for people who are not willing to play by the rules. We're not going to play by those rules. We have to do what they're doing. We have to just be entitled to what is here, and we can rebrand after a while.
All right, thank you, my brother. Easy, Victor, and then
I need
Philip.
to talk a little bit. How do we talk? How do I raise my hand?
Oh, okay. I got you on the list now, Brother Raymond. So
yes, thank you.
I'll say Easy, Victor, Philip, then Brother Raymond. All right.
Okay, thank you.
All righty.
Okay. I just wanted to highlight, I think there are certain things that we need to maybe, we need to be very critical in whatever we are getting, because there's something that the media can do. It gives you certain information to push a certain objective, of course. I will use an example where we think these people that we see are these billionaires or millionaires and billionaires that we see are really billionaires. Some of them, I think they are there because the system has designed it in such a way that they want you to look up to these people. And yet, when you really look and piece the corporate and you piece the veil, who is this person? You find that no, this person is just a proxy. So what I'm trying to say, what am I trying to say? I'm trying to say to us, let us, as much as we take this information that we get, let's at least try and unpack it and get deep into it and not scratch the surface and take this news or the stories as the gospel truths, but rather try and analyze them and criticize it as much as you can, so that we learn something out of this. For instance, some of these BEE deals that we have, and some of these people that you see, how did they acquire that wealth? It's not their wealth. They are just the faces of the wealth that you see there. And the more these people expand, of course, they are using these people to expand into the continent. It's a new way of colonizing. So what am I saying? I'm saying let us try and be genuine with ourselves and do things and focus on what is really going to transform the economy and the black man in particular in terms of the economy. That's what I'm trying to say.
Thank you, Brother Easy, Brother Victor, Brother Philip, and Brother Raymond. And then we'll start wrapping up because I got a few questions about, okay, we got some Black Americans watching. We got a Black American actually on right here. What's the next step for us? How do we best invest our monies? What industries and areas would maybe Lozy, maybe Josie Gold or Philip recommend us spending our investing our money? So Brother Victor, then Brother Philip, and then Brother Raymond. Brother Victor, I think you're still on mute, brother.
Thank you for having me on, and thanks for the show. What I would want to say or share is, I've seen, I think it was a couple years back, South Africa borrowed money to build, I think it was in 2010, they borrowed money to upgrade the infrastructure in Joburg, the toll roads and stuff like that. And one day I was pondering on this. I'm just thinking to myself, they needed to pay back that money. And I'm saying to myself, why didn't they organize either a company or some vehicle where local South Africans could contribute whatever amount it is into this one fund that is either nationally controlled or by some organization, to say, okay, everybody will put in and we'll upgrade the roads, and whatever income comes from that, that is generated, can be paid out, and those people can withdraw dividends in that thing. That was my idea, and that's what I just wanted to share on today.
Thank you, Brother Victor. Brother Philip.
Sorry, just before I go, even if someone within the group can try and organize that type of a vehicle that people can contribute to, as I've explained, and run with something like that, as you're talking of Stockfells and all this various ways of putting in money in. But if you put in maybe $1,000 every month, then every month that money is growing and it's being invested, and someone is in charge of that money, and people can reap dividends. It can be sown into the types of businesses you're talking about now, in terms of maybe solar, whatever, wind or whatever, and things like that. Okay,
right.
thank you, guys.
Thank you, Brother Victor. Brother Philip, your hands raised.
Yes, thank you, Asad. I think we have interesting things coming up, which is great because this is what's all about. And very, very interesting. Some of the things I've mentioned, example, when we speak about the banks not considering Black people, you know, from FAPCO's perspective, we had money at some point. We having sold a company that we had. We took some money. We said, here is money for you banks, in this case, Standard Bank. And the government did the same, by the way. They gave money to Standard, to all the banks in Kuda. And they said, because you are risk averse, whatever money that we have, here it is, you know, 30% or 40% will, you know, be covered by this. The banks still were not able to do that. I'm just saying that we control somewhere. If it is about education, you know, I agree, but I think the majority of the people that go to the bank, there's quite a lot of people that will be able to apply that. Besides that, we put in some money, we gave it to Standard Bank for them to fund our businesses. We said to them, you'll fund all FAPCO's businesses. Here is 70 million rands. If there's anybody that defaults, you know, you will take from that money. They said, no, that's great. We'll put in another 100, so it will be 170 million rands. I think it ended up, they even put in more to about 300 million rands. Amazing thing, it's 6 months down the line, they haven't funded not even one business. Having given them money to say, you will take it from there, they still didn't fund it. You know, so if we're saying it's more about collateral or it's about procedure, but at the end of the day, even if it's procedure, I know that white businesses, it's more about, do you have the collateral to back up this, because you must put the skin in the game. The skin in the game was there, but they were not willing to do that. I'm just saying that sometimes there's another agenda that we might not be aware of, because I don't think, what I liked is that maybe this white monopoly capital is not a South African phenomenon, it's a global thing, to make sure that we as Black people don't prosper in one way or another. There is that thing. So in whatever that we do, we must always find a way to say, how do we deal with those kind of things? My way forward to what I suggest is that it will be great, because access to finance is a key one, you know, and I think there has been various things that have been mentioned that are interesting. How do we get to own the banks, you know, or maybe even the large retailers, how we get to do that, but also how do we do to grow our companies organically. I would actually say we must pick maybe a one or two sectors if possible, and delve into it and see how we can actually deal with that, you know, or if needs be, speak one into about access to finance and talk a lot about it and have a way forward in terms of how we can deal with that particular aspect. And I also like the fact that what was also raised is that the Black American people that are rich are more wealthier than South Africans because of the exchange rates. So there is an opportunity there that you could also come in as an opportunity on your side. But I'm just saying that as a way forward, it might be good for us to look at either a particular sector and look at how we can fund it and how we can grow those particular aspects. But otherwise, I'm happy that you know, there was a lot of interaction into this, and it's great. I think we one way or another, we have actually made progress. Thank you.
All right, family, we're coming into the home stretch, the last 15, 13 minutes. We got Josie Gold. Did you raise your hand again, or is that from the last time?
Yes.
Raymond.
Okay, Josie, let me get to Raymond, and then Josie, and then Seppo.
All right.
All right, go ahead, Brother Raymond.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for this platform. Philip, we really appreciate to make sure that this is going so well. Secondly, I would like to thank Appleton Busalezi. If maybe we can get hold of him, we can talk about these cooperatives. because he made mention of tertiary cooperative, which maybe we can take it further and understand exactly what can we do in that cooperatives. Because he also made mention of 4 of them existing already. So if maybe he can give us information regarding that one, then we can take his email address and communicate with him. Question to Mrs. PLC. In terms of, you were talking about credit union and saying the funds in credit union are not in the banking sector. The credit unions are controlling those funds. Now, how are you controlling? Are you putting the money in the kitty when someone comes and borrow, you lend? Or how are you managing those funds? Because I said to myself, you said to us, no, the money is not in the bank. The money is with you. So how is the money with you? Is it in the kitty or wherever? You tell us where the money is.
Okay, it's very much
Now,
like a your fund, your stock fell fund,
stock fail. All right.
or your credit union usually has a place in which it doesn't have to have a big building and things like that. As long as you have a place that you can put your money into, they usually will buy a small bank or a small place that will have a what do you call it? A safe,
Okay.
and a safe, yeah, and where you can secure your money, and people come in once a week, once a day, whatever, and they will actually say, I want to deposit this 10 rand. I got an
Okay.
extra 10 rand. That money stays where you're banking at. But the issue and the impact of this is that you usually have a board. Credit unions or cooperatives are run by boards, and they are the shareholders. And the shareholders have to have their quarterly meetings, talk about if they're going. And the other thing with a credit union or a cooperative, they give dividends. You put in 500 rand, you get a dividend off of that 500 rand for leaving it there. So you're not just putting some money, having a savings account, but that's not necessarily, that's what we did in America. But here in on the continent of Africa, they have a similar system, but it's finding you a place that you can literally have a facility in which someone can have a bank in which someone can come in, access. I have been to the middle of Malawi and seen people in the middle of Malawi, they have that group of people have a credit union, but they have to have a facility in which they can keep the money safely. And that means maybe that's an asset, that's a building, that's something that will that organization will grow. But what makes a credit union or a cooperative easier for the average person is that you can save your money and you also can get dividends off of there, and it's run by the shareholders.
Excellent.
So
No,
not for
you answered me.
okay.
You answered me.
And
Yeah.
that's not the whole thing. Go on the internet and look at it, okay?
Excellent. I'm very happy. We will do that. I've seen exactly, I heard what you said. Now, also going back to my brothers, Josie, I think it's Josie, if not Losie, one of the two, saying our people need teaching in terms of how to apply to the bank to get a loan. You can do the best business plan to the loaning to the banks. At the end of the day, again, you will get another stringent measure where they say the business must be in operation for 2 years. As a new business, how can they expect you to run without funding for 2 years and say no, then therefore you can only come and apply for funding? So there are startups. I can only say I like the idea of Appleton. We need to sit around with Appleton let's see the way forward. Because in the banking sector, forget it. I'm talking from experience. I was one of the managers of the banking sector. I know exactly what I'm talking about. So there's a lot of red tapes that make sure that you cannot. There, Philip was saying to you, a very typical example. There was funds that was there to support their application. But at the end of the day, the answer was no. So all I'm saying is, let's forget about the banking at this stage. Let's look at how can we raise funds with an idea from Appleton. We sit around the table, we discuss that further. That's all I can say. Because you go back to stock exchange. Who's running stock exchange? How are you going to take over that stock exchange if you've got no capabilities and the assets to take over that stock exchange? It's a very good idea, but that's a false hope. We cannot have a false hope of things that we are aware that we cannot reach. It's a good idea to say, let's run the stock exchange. How are you going to run the stock exchange without assets? So all I'm saying to my brothers and sisters, let's look at what Appleton's got, and let's work on that and take it further. Thank you.
Thank you, brother Raymond.
Josie.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Okay.
Well, Josie, let I know you. I want to let Seppo jump in since he hasn't had an opportunity.
All right.
And then, did Victor speak already? Did I miss Victor?
No, Victor spoke.
Oh, okay. Well, the hands are still raised. So Seppo, I'll let Seppo jump.
Sorry, I just speak, guys.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yes, you did. Thank you.
So once
let me
Seppo
just-
speaks, Josie go, and then we'll wrap up because it's getting late, and we are in the process of moving. So Seppo,
Sure. Greetings to everyone. Can you guys hear me?
fine. Did I say your name right? Please correct me.
Yes, it's Tepo correctly.
Look at me doing.
There you go. I know you pressed for time. If I can run through some of the the answers or maybe the responses that I've had while listening to other guests that you had. What I realized that a lot of us, we, especially the Black people from a South African perspective, is that one thing that we tend to leap over is the simple thing, which is knowledge. Knowledge is power. A lot of our Black brothers and sisters, we tend to skip that part. Like Josie mentioned, like Brother Philip also mentioned, that we have to split the hairs when it comes to different topics that we speak about, because I can tell you one thing that supports Josie, I can tell you one thing that supports maybe, for example, Lozi on the other hand. I'll give you an example. When it comes to mining, if you look at our mining industry, the largest mining operation that we have in South Africa, only 15% of those funds or the dividends that are paid on an annual basis actually come to South Africa. The rest go to the shareholders. And you look at the list of the shareholders, you have Canada having about 4 companies that are listed in that mining operations, Australia, meaning that over 85% of the funds that are invested in our raw materials actually go offshore. The same as one of your speakers mentioned, or it was a Brother Philip that mentioned that 20 million rands come out of Soweto and never comes back. So the minute detail in this particular aspect of looking at this economic environment is understanding that the fundamental pillar of our free enterprise system is that it is informal. By that, I mean that if you meet somebody that sells a wonderful T-shirt and you buy that T-shirt on the street, that person is unlikely to invest or deposit that money in the bank. They'll probably use that money to either pay for transport, buy goods, or pay for services. So it's the important thing first to understand exactly what is that we are talking about, because we can go one way or the other depending on what the nuances of that particular topics are. And you have something like banking as one of your guests actually has mentioned. Banking as well, whether it's a co-op or whether it's a a banking institution or a leasing and a company that gives people loans for high returns, those type of companies, you first have to understand what their fundamental drivers are. If you invest in a fund or an offshore asset, you are most likely going to get returns, but you are highly unlikely to actually help somebody who is in Soweto to actually grow. So you have to choose. You have an option. You're going to invest in somebody's idea or business, or you're going to invest in a corporate company's offshore business actually, or assets that they have offshore. Those are the choices that we have. That's what we need. That's what we need actually to have to establish ourselves, that we first probably have to have a centralized venture incubator where we can say, this type of incubator, this is where we're going to attract businesses. If we find a business has a global appeal, it'll compete globally with other businesses, then perhaps we can start investing in that type of businesses to not only grow it, but also to in the long run to be able to get a profitable dividends off of that investment. So these are the things that we first have to understand before we can advise somebody who comes from outside and say, no, invest in Black people's business or invest in a corporate company. Those are the options that we have. I think it's important then we can split those hairs like your guests have done today. That by doing that, then it'll be easy for us as a people to grow in a collective. Like some of your guests have identified, perhaps we need to sit down and understand what's the first thing that we need to do. Perhaps have a blueprint of where do we go from here, because there are a lot of people that have the skills to develop businesses, whether from a consulting perspective or from a financial perspective. But these people, they do not have a place where they can go and say, oh, well, Brother Philip says they have 100 million. We can use that 100 million by starting from a little investment by developing Brother Izzy's property company. By starting in those by actually following rather that particular blueprint, that's how you can be able to grow not only your wealth but the community that surrounds you. That's what's important, because it's very easy to go and invest in an established company or a financial institution, but it's very difficult to actually invest in somebody's idea and business as well as that community. So those are the challenges that we first have to understand how we can actually go about helping us as a people to be able to grow. Okay, thank you guys.
Thank you so much, brother. And Josie, go. I'll let you close us out.
Brother,
Yeah.
can I just
wait, hold on, Lozi. Hold on, hold your horses. All right, look, okay. What you were saying earlier about that whole thing, what you was, yeah, the business you could start. Like I was watching a food channel the other day. If you can bring like that whole soul food, like type of food that you guys do there in America, you could do very well. I mean, they Chinese restaurants, there's like Pakistanis, there's everybody, but I don't see a soul food restaurant around. Or like I remember even watching some of the stuff that you eat in New Orleans, like in the city that you come from, that you're in right now. If you could do some of that, that could also work. So in terms of food and restaurants, that could work. But like what Ms. PLC was saying earlier, the small business sector, if you can invest in that, you could do very, very well in that, or bring something new that we don't have. Like, I'm sure there's a lot of things you do there that you might see here and think, hey, look, they don't have this here. If you can bring some of that, you could do really well with that as well. And another thing I wanted to address was the whole banking thing. Look, banks are not created to fund startup businesses. Like that's something that people don't talk about. Startups are not funded by banks. It's just the reality. I don't know why. I don't know the technicals of it, but that's just how things are. And then in terms of like, let's say, what is it? Small, come on, like in terms of like small businesses, like, okay, let me speak for myself. Like for me, I also own my own business, and I couldn't get funding for many years. And most people that I know personally, that have their own businesses that are black in this country, even white people, they had to self-fund. They had to start small and grow over time. I know many people don't like hearing that, but it is true. And even some of these venture capitalists, they prefer putting their money in businesses like that are self-started, they already have some sort of income. That's what they look for most of the time. So yeah, thank you.
Let me ask, and since we're about to wrap up, is there a Goodwill in SA? And Miss PLC knows what a Goodwill is, but for those, if there's not, let me explain. It's like a secondhand store. So I have a lot of stuff because we were at the Goodwill yesterday donating some stuff. There's plenty of Goodwills. Okay, cool.
Yeah, but let me jump in here. Are there? Would you ask Philip? Are there black business incubators? I think there's a couple of them in Joburg, but I know we have business incubators. That's where we can put these small, these people into an organization. Philip, what about business incubators? They work all over the world. Do we have them in Joburg? Business incubators.
I do. I will look through my email, because I know I contacted a business incubator in Johannesburg after watching the Real South Africa's channel, and they had them on. So I will find out that name again, but there's at least one that I know of. I'm sure they have more, but there's at least one that I know of.
I know there's some here in Cape Town. So thank you.
Brother Appleton says we incubate at a few cool, sir. Food co-op, sir. Brother Appleton says they do it, and he has
Yes, talk to us. We do, and we are partnered with various scientific institutions locally that are going to help incubation as well. Please let us talk, and then we will bring all that our people are looking for. Thanks.
Definitely. So there's always questions about next steps. So Brother Easy and myself, we will get together. We will see how we can at least form a database of some of this information to where it could be accessible, so that we don't have to ask questions again, like, is there incubator? We could be like, go right here onto this website and you can find incubators, you can find this, you can find that, or whatever have you, at least to have a network, because there's different opportunities and different ideas that are taking place. Again, Josie is saying maybe micro businesses and small businesses, and those, and Lozy is talking about the stock exchange, but I think it's a multifaceted, multi-pronged approach. So maybe we could have somebody who is just well-versed in the Johannesburg Stock Exchange. There's a brother from New Orleans, his name is the Wall Street Trapper. And yeah, and he's hood and ghetto, but the brother knows those stocks, right? And you can watch him. So maybe there is a version of the Wall Street Trapper in Johannesburg, someone who is able to break it down for the lay person, and not only the lay person, for the lay person, in ways that are very tangible and accessible, that we can say, oh, I understand why I need to invest in this, or how I should look at this stock as an opportunity, or why it's not good to invest, right? Number one. And then somebody else who can tell us about the micro businesses. I can think of right here locally in New Orleans, there is they call it the Doing Better Black Business, right? And it was put out by a bank. We have one Black-owned bank in New Orleans called Liberty Bank, and they put out a book. Well, it's not a book, it's actually an online thing that you can go and you can find just about every Black-owned business in the city of New Orleans. I mean, from dry cleaners to restaurants or whatever have you. And it was a way of promoting. So there's another thing that we didn't mention, and that word is intentionality. You have to be intentional about supporting these businesses. So I'm sure Miss PLC's husband can find brandy anywhere, but when they go to Johannesburg, they go to this lady who makes the best brandy that she likes out in Soweto, right? So there are ways of creation. Anyway, Brother Easy and I got some work to do, and look like load shedding just ended for him. So thank y'all for tuning in. We really appreciate it. Go ahead.
No, I was just saying bye.
Oh, all right, peace, family. And we will be back soon with another. I don't know. It's gonna be a couple of days because we're about to get off of here, and we got to go get a U-Haul truck to move all this stuff out of the house. You got to move furniture.
Adrian,
So,
Adrian, good luck to you. Good luck to you, because I know this is a lot coming on you. So my prayers are with you. Good energy, okay? Because you got it. Because moving to Africa is more than a notion.
yeah.
Lots of work.
Lots of work. Thank you guys so much. We appreciate it. Peace.
Bye, guys.